How long have you and Tucker been training?
We were partnered in January of 2010. So we trained for almost 3.5 years for this deployment. This was our first official deployment with Texas Task Force 2.
When did you get the call to go out to West?
We got the official request through the state of Texas to be deployed to West around 11:30 on Wednesday evening.
Okay. I think I read that Task Force 1 was called as well.
At the exact same time. Texas Task Force 2 is a regional and state team. And so we have the ability as a regional response to utilize on-duty crews there in Dallas at Station 19 and Station 33 and the Hazardous Materials Station. And we can go right then. And the deployment is so much quicker, many, many hours quicker, in fact. And that's no reflection on Texas Task Force 1, who is a FEMA team and much larger team and much larger resources. However, the time that it takes for them to get what we call boots on the ground is much, much longer. We were there in West at approximately 1:30 in the morning, and Texas 1 did not arrive until 8:30. We began our first assignment within 10 minutes of arriving. It's usually much, much, much longer than that, because you have to get on the ground and get organized and get ready. But we were searching within 10 minutes. It was that quick because the need was there.
This was your first actual deployment. What went through your mind?
What went through my mind was as devastating of an event as I was anticipating having to respond to. I was also very excited to be able to put all of the tools and training that Tucker and I have been working on for over 3 years to use. We finally would be able to see everything come together and come to fruition. And so that anticipation, I guess, of being able to do whatever we could do in light of this horrific disaster and do whatever we could do.
What were your first impressions when you got down there?
Overwhelmed. Absolutely overwhelmed. When you watch the news coverage, right before we ever even got deployed, you watch the news coverage and you saw this just infiltration of all of these emergency vehicles, just lights coming from every different direction, and we thought, oh my goodness, there's going to be they've gotten all the help they need. And then so when we got the call, because they needed crews and teams that were specially trained to be able to stabilize structures, to shore structures, so that we could actually enter and search. People could search from the outside, but because the structures were so unstable, they needed Texas Task Force 2, Texas Task Force 1 to come in and structurally, what am I trying to say? They had to go in and stabilize the structures for us to be able to. The apartment complex, the nursing home, is where you would most likely have had the most victims. And that is where your focus is initially, to look and see if there's anybody that can be rescued. Because Tucker's trained to detect live human scent of an unconscious or conscious victim.
Were there structures where you had to send the dogs by themselves?
Yes, many, many.
Did you and Tucker find any people alive or dead?
We did not find anyone that was a live, viable victim. There was a very, very extensive search that occurred before we ever got there by volunteers, neighbors, volunteer firefighters and EMS workers, other small departments that were closer than we were, that did a really good job of going in and evacuating. There was a huge presence that made us feel safe, as well as first responders that had already gone in and done their best to try to clear out. But you had no light, there's no electricity, and so you're working in pitch dark conditions. And so we went through, after they had already gone through and systematically searched those areas. But unfortunately, there were some victims that we found that had perished in the disaster. The dogs were showing some signs of being very confused and uncomfortable in certain areas, and those are the areas where we found the deceased victims. And so they did their job. They were showing signs that this is not somebody that I can help, but this is something that maybe you guys need to check on a little bit further. My first deployment, that's certainly the biggest thing that Tucker and I have ever responded to, and this is what we trained for a while. And again, I can't emphasize enough, as incredibly devastating as it was to have to go into these people's homes who had absolutely not, I can't imagine they had any kind of warning or notice that something was occurring. I can't imagine, because you think about those things as you're going through these people's homes. You feel like you're entering into a completely different world, because to me it looked like a war zone. I guess the biggest thing for me that was so eye-opening is I've trained with him for 3.5 years, Stuart, and I thought I knew that dog. I am in awe. I am absolutely in awe. His paws hit the ground, and he knew this was the deal. This was the real deal. And I could not get him to stop. I mean, when we train, we go a certain amount of time, and then we stop. We do a vet check. We drink some water. We take a little break. I couldn't get him to stop. He was so focused on his job, and he went from house to house to house to house to house, and I was running to keep up with him. I was exhausted, and I'm sure he was too, but we knew we had a job to do.
It's now 2 days later. How's he doing? Is he tired?
Oh, he's been ready to go since yesterday. He was very, very tired the night that we got home, of course. We both were. But the next day he was ready to go. He's like, okay, what you got for me now?
That's great.